be frank, it is a complicated schedule, right? It is challenging, it's an interesting draw structure. One of the reasons why this draw structure has been created is to ensure that more teams play against one another than they do necessarily in an ordinary sectioned, a more traditional quarterfinal, semi-final style of match. The other part of the Netball World Cup, which is quite unique, I think, is that every single team plays out to the very end for a final position. So that actually means that we hold all teams till the very end of the tournament. Unlike, for example, our colleagues in the FIFA Women's World Cup, where as teams drop out of stages, they depart the tournament. At the Netball World Cup, that doesn't happen. People continue to remain and play up to a final position for classification. So I think it's important to understand that that is actually quite unique. It's a feature of netball and it's something that we do love because it needs a real celebration of the game. The second thing, and I will share this with Bruce, and it's probably important for you guys to read yourself at your own time and then ask some questions. We've got competition regulations that cover how we manage the separation of teams if we get teams that are tied on points. We use a goal average or a goal percentage, depending on which terminology you prefer, where we look at points, goals scored for divided by goals scored against across the 3 matches that they've played in pool play. There is a slightly more complicated structure to it where you have 3 teams. So when it's just 2, we also look at the match between 2 teams, what the result of that match between 2 teams was. But when you have 3 teams, we start with goal percentage and then we move forward from a series of eliminators from that point until we get final rankings. And it looks like there's a possibility of that in Pool A. So Pool A, the match this afternoon between Tonga and Zimbabwe is going to be a very critical game, okay? If Zimbabwe beat Tonga, then we will have 3 teams that have achieved 2 points each. If Tonga beats Zimbabwe, then we will have a clear second, and we will have a clear 1, 2, 3, 4 in that pool, if that occurs. And likewise, we've got a couple of other matches yet. I think it's fair to say Jamaica, South Africa is pretty much a crunchy one, which we like. Love crunchy matches. You know, we've had a few, but I think we can have more. So that Pool C is yet, the final rankings of Pool C are yet to be determined based on the outcome of that match. However, we do know that Wales is holding C3. This is unofficial, by the way, unofficial, off the record, completely for the purposes of explaining the schedule to you. We have yet to do all the final calculations. But it looks likely that Wales will be C3 and Sri Lanka are C4. In Pool D, I think it's reasonably certain that New Zealand will be D1, Uganda D2, Trinidad and Tobago D3, and Singapore D4. Okay? Australia, as I said, Pool A, Australia will be A1. Pretty certain. And in Pool B, there are a couple of matches yet to play, and that too will be something that will finalise itself. But it looks likely that England will be B1, and Malawi will be B2. Looks likely. Let's see. Right? Never say never. What happens though from that point? So I'm going to take the example of pool D, because pool D is a finished pool, right? Pool D is complete, or not quite actually. It's not quite complete, but it's a little probably more clear cut potentially. But I'll use a couple of these examples. So Australia, what happens is when you take pool A, you end up then ranking the teams A1, A2, A3, A4. Okay? All the pools will end up like that. They will be rankings 1 to 4. All the fours move to pool E. Okay? So the bottom team in each pool becomes a member of pool E. A4 becomes E1. B4, E2, C4, E3, D4, E4. Okay? So E1, 2, 3, 4, and they continue with their schedule. I'm not going to explain that, but we'll work that one out. They are effectively playing off for positions 13 to 16. That's what they're